Hey, Jason Seiden here. So this week I want to talk about change and influence. I have certainly been through a lot of change in the last few years, but professionally I've also been focused on things like user adoption and driving change and leadership and management, and there's a lot of carryover. The principles that work at work also work in our personal lives. And one of the biggest mistakes I see people make in both areas is that when they want to influence behavior, they focus on what somebody gets, the upside of the change, to the exclusion of addressing the current state. Like, why are you staying here? And in work, if you're in sales or if you're in entrepreneurship, you've probably heard the 10x rule. You have to offer somebody you have to offer them something that's going to be 10 times more efficient or more effective than what they're currently doing to get them to change. And in my experience, that's kind of right. The problem is that if somebody has fear of change in any capacity, it's like a drawbridge that's raised. In order to even consider your 10x, that drawbridge has to be down. I have to be willing to go out, and then it's a question of, is this good enough for me to change my behavior? But if fear's at the table, somebody may not be considering change in any capacity. They're just completely shut down. And so if we don't take a moment to address that, we lose opportunities. And by the way, the cost of not addressing fear is high. In your personal life, it's a lot of frustration, right? It's about, you and somebody else are about to get into entrenched roles where you're telling somebody why they should care about something, and they're going to tell you why it's none of your business, right? And in work, you're going to end up saying, oh, this is not our target market, and you're going to go through a whole lot of exercises. You're like, oh, that's not our ideal customer profile. We need new journey maps. We need new. You do a whole lot of work when the fact is you may have missed something really, really basic, really easy to solve, where it is your ideal customer profile. You just need to literally add a sentence or change the way in which an email is being sent in order to break through. So before you go and get entrenched with somebody or go through a whole lot of rigmarole for not a lot of payoff, here are 3 tips on making something safe, making change easy by maybe addressing a little bit of that fear that might be blocking somebody's ability to even consider something new. Number 1, make sure when you speak, you're anchoring on the known. If the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. Anchor on the known and the challenges that somebody is currently accepting. Make it explicit. Especially in business, it's wild. I see so many companies that are terrified of acknowledging the current problems. But if you don't acknowledge the current problems, the person's only going to change if they compare what you're talking to their current problems. So if you don't acknowledge them, you're leaving it to them to acknowledge them, and they're very likely going to sit there and go, yeah, my current state's not so bad. So anchor on the known. In my personal life, when my girls were little, I did this. So my older daughter, Elle, was picking up a lot of fear in the house. Kids go through phases. And at one point, she's sliding off the couch. She was taking time to come off the couch. It felt very high to her, and she was afraid. So I could be like, Elle, jump, get off the couch. Didn't work. So what I did was, when I took her to gymnastics, I measured the height of the foam block she would jump off against my leg. And then when we went home the next day, I was like, oh, hey, Elle, by the way, look how much lower the couch is than those foam blocks you jump off at gymnastics. She figured that out real quick, and then the fear of getting off the couch went away. Anchor on the known. Number 2, give change a face. This is not like a competition. You're not saying, oh, me too, but be relatable. When you approach somebody, before they'll consider the idea, they got to make sure it's coming from a credible source, a relatable source. So in work, there's no impersonal emails. Put a face to it. If you've got a case study to send, add a note on the email where you're sending that case study. Some of you do that, great, I know. But not everybody does. And in your personal life, same thing. If you look at somebody and you're like, oh yeah, you should want to do this. Well, who are you? Take a moment. Literally, that's all it takes. Take a moment. Let somebody know, look, you've got scar tissue. You've been on the other side. It looks kind of weird. This is what you do for a living. Whatever it is, make sure that they can relate to where the advice is coming from. And third, cheerlead. I mean, it sounds so silly, but habits are hard to develop. So sometimes people need a little encouragement. They know that if they go from completely horrible to mostly horrible, they're still mostly horrible. You be the one to remind them, hey, from 5% to 10% is 100% improvement. I know you got a long way to go. You know you've got a long way to go. It's a slog, but let's celebrate what you have done. And if you keep doing this, you're going to be fine before you know it. It's a critical piece, and not all of us are able to muster that internally, especially when we're dealing with fear that, like, oh, I'm still mostly horrible. It sends us right back to where we were. So help people break out of it. Be a cheerleader. So giving something a familiar face, anchoring on the known, being a cheerleader, 3 great ways to help people change, not by anchoring them on the value that they get by making the change, but just by making sure that if there's fear that's blocking them, that you're clearing it out. So, all right, thanks. I know this week was a little bit more nuts and bolts, but sometimes these weeks are a little more nuts and bolts. I love you. I'll see you next week.